people? Duncan here. I have a story I'd love to share. Please like, subscribe to my channel, guys. Go push that bell to get more notifications. I'd like to tell you a story. Something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Whether or not you believe it's true or false, that's up to you. But let me tell you what I'm talking about. Okay, first, let's say that there's this country that's about to win or fighting for its independence. Now, first and foremost, you got to remember that these people trying to make America and form America and get our independence, you got to remember that these patriots had to have some kind of help. Okay, so the first thing they do is they contact the one group of people who you know are willing to go to fight the English. So what they do is they contact France. They get America's very first allies. Now see, this is big because my question is this. Is that all they did? Because we know that America also adopted the British property rights, which led to the slavery. We also know that the British were big on slavery, and we also know that the Zionists owned a lot of the slave ships. So, could America's first forefathers have actually built America with the help of France and Zionist slave trades? So let's go on. Let's move on. Let's say that this relationship makes a lot of people a lot of money, mostly a lot of the Democrats, because that was the very first party in America. Now let's say that the Republican Party pops up, the Civil War happens, we all know the Civil War ends, and suddenly it's illegal. The slave trade becomes illegal. There's no more need for Zionist slave trade ships inside America. So now you have this the free, independent country without slavery. Now let's pretend for a second that everything's going good, and these certain individuals say, you know, this ain't good if the American people can control our votes, our money. You know, so these deep state, let's say for instance, this country that's built on favors, big money, foreign interest, let's say now they owe a debt. And how are you going to pay that? So, once again, they make a deal with, let's say, big businesses. And they say, hey, we'll let you establish these universities, these colleges. We'll let you teach and indoctrinate the youth so that America can become home to big business and corporate world. So these big business tycoons in 1823 establish the Skull and Bones inside of Yale. Now this society starts grooming young males and later women to become predominant members inside the business world. They literally groom them to be their fathers, to be tycoons, international tycoons. And in the same regard, the original forefathers would give them the ability to intertwingle inside our societies in order to build their businesses and make a lot of money on the backs of America. This is the first time that the Freemasons or the church sold out to big business. Okay, or if you want to call deep state, bankers. Now they knew that in order to maintain this, they're going to have to control the laws. They've already subverted the youth, but they know that they have to subvert the youth. Now that they subvert the youth, they know they're capable of changing laws with an indoctrinate youth. So what they do in 1920s, this is when the communist subversion begins. These same universities start becoming socialist-friendly environments where they start indoctrinating the youth into communism. The funny thing is, this is the same youth that owns a lot of the same businesses that are in bed with the Freemasons or the church. Well, let's say that the Lawyers Guild pops up. McCarthyism is basically the same equivalency as racism. And let's see, suddenly you have lawyers inside the deep state business backed by the church, which is probably getting overran and infiltrated at this point. And let's take, for instance, now that it got so bad that McCarthy started making laws to try to change it. And it lasted a little while, but then those laws were overturned, and McCarthyism became known as basically racism. So now let's take in consideration that this continues then to Vietnam. Okay? Now Vietnam is the first time they put media on the front lines of war. It's the first time big businesses had TVs in almost every living room. So every family in America got to see our soldiers shooting other people, and sometimes kids, because they were given hand grenades and told them to come running to them. Sometimes our soldiers did bad things and it was caught on film. And they had no choice. But that wasn't how the media twisted it. This was the first example of the media subversion and how it was used for political gain in America. We've seen that whole women's rights abortion movement come from it. You've seen the same people who scream women's rights were the ones holding up signs calling our soldiers baby killers coming home from Nam. You see, by the time JFK tried to warn us, we'd already been subverted by the media. We'd been subverted by communists. We've been subverted by deep state. Our churches have been subverted. Now you're going into the 70s, and now you're talking about an administration that opens up the borders, allows cocaine, allows illegal immigration, allows gangs, violence, and all this stuff to start flowing and trickling in. What this does is it leads into the 80s with the Reagan campaign, the Just Say No, war on drugs. But what it also does is it creates this rap culture. Okay, so inside our inner cities that we're getting jobs sent to Mexico by this point, we've seen poverty and crime pop up all over. And we've seen this culture where literally rap music was the way of life. It was the culture. And during the 80s, the 90s, it was all about red and blue. It was all about that colors. And so when you take in that consideration, once again, by the 90s, our youth is indoctrinated. They're subverted by the media. They're subverted by Hollywood. They're subverted by, just about everybody you can think of going down the line. Then there's the Clinton administration. And he opens up the borders even more, shoves even more jobs, creates NAFTA, all that good stuff, essentially sending our wealth out of the country and allowing nothing to come in except more drugs, illegals, violence, such. Now this continues all the way up until Junior. Okay, now let's say Junior, I think he was a deep state puppet. I think he was a name. And he was used to ignite the Islamic subversion. So by 2001, we had gone to war. We had created conflict. And then the Obama administration showed up. And suddenly Islamic refugees got pumped into our country. And once we got tired of that as Americans, and once we stood up and voted for Trump as president, they were now starting to put an end to the refugee program, or at least the Islamic refugee program. But what's disturbing to me is we immediately go and declare Jerusalem the capital, knowing that there's a long time war there. I'm wondering if we just created a doorway to the next subversion. The Zionist subversion. I do believe the Zions still work with Islam, since Islam controls about 11.5 million slaves in places like Afghanistan and Pakistan. I do believe that all of it flows together. America has always been subverted. The American people have always been silenced. And now we have to stand. Thank you. Please subscribe, comment, and like the page, guys. Peace. Duncan out.